Welcome back to Mind Your Biz. My name is Seth, and in today's Creator Highlight episode, I have the great pleasure. This has been a long time coming, and this person knows because I've been threatening to do this for, gosh, the better part of almost a year. The great pleasure of finally bringing on a long time, now at this point, it's becoming a long time, but a relatively recent friend from Web3. I know him as J Chains. I know him as Justin. Let's just call him JC for it. That sounds weird. You know what? Let's just bring him on camera. J Chains, welcome to Mind Your Biz.
What is up, man? I appreciate you bringing me on here. I am definitely, as you just said, man, this has been a long time in the making. Definitely looking forward to this conversation. I think we're going to have a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the audience that doesn't know you, first off, guys, get out from under a rock. J Chains is everywhere. He's on Twitter, Twitter Spaces, amazing Twitter Spaces host, runs the Web3 breakfast every single day at what, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're getting ready to make some scheduling changes, but we have been consistent for the last year at 10 a.m. Eastern every Monday through Friday. So
that's just amazing. And I remember episode 1, I think I jumped in for a couple days that first week and was like, holy cow, they're off to a great start. The format is solid. The guest lineups have always been phenomenal. The conversations are top notch. And I enjoy my time when I'm just visiting, but you guys are making sure that the trains run on time for those visits. So I'm just thoroughly impressed with what you've done over there. But for anybody that maybe is not as familiar with you, J Chains, who is Justin Castardo, who is J Chains in a nutshell.
Absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate that. I'm a Web3 community member, first and foremost. Back it up. I'm a father, a husband, a son, a brother. I'm just a regular guy that happened to find crypto and digital assets several years ago and linked up with some people that really stand out above the rest. And yeah, it's been a roller coaster ride for the last several years. But I tell you what, man, being able to create content, being able to educate people, being able to build a community here in the Web3 space is something that I love it, right? Like it makes me feel whole running my show, right? Because the whole ethos behind it is that we're a show for the community by the community. And like I said, I'm a community member above anything. It doesn't matter how big the platform gets or where the opportunity takes us. At the end of the day, we're all the same. And so that's my thing. It's just I'm a regular guy that took advantage of an opportunity, much to a lot of us that found crypto early on. And really love the positivity side of it, the engaging side of it, and really building and networking, growing with some really cool people in this ecosystem, man. And it has been a wild ride, but it's been fun.
Yeah, amazing. And the number of events that we've gone to in person, in market, now we've got a huge promotion coming up with Karate Combat, but a couple of events that we've gone to like that, where it's just exciting. We'll table that for later on in the conversation, but the number of events that we've gone to, we've been able to see each other and then all of these other people all of these misfits who've all been gravitating towards the crypto ecosystem. It's a genuine pleasure, right? Like the joy of discovery and seeing how everyone is finding their place in the crypto industry, but also in this asset class and what it's doing for people's lives. Really that community aspect of being on this side, right? Creating and fostering community and being community builders together. Dude, second to none. And that's why for me, it's been so satisfying over the last year to see you put forward the Web3 breakfast, like start totally clean slate, right? Like blank slate, and
it was
go into Web3 breakfast and just really turn it into something amazing with a phone, right? Like a phone and Twitter, and then it's been built up from there. But like pretty amazing. But let's jump into before crypto. I know this is like a very long jump back, but the before times.
Perfect.
We've talked about all kinds of stuff. You've heard me joke about how you are like the techno cowboy, and and I don't mean like techno Viking. He's not like dancing around in front of the cattle, something else. But you got a much varied life experience, which comes through, dude. That's why you're so relatable, man. People just want to they see you on camera. Yeah, man, that guy, he makes me feel seen and alive, and he gets it. He's not just some nerd. Let's talk about your life before crypto. Who was the Justin Castardo before J Chains? Who was that guy?
That's a great question. Thank you. But before I got into all of this, like I was a nomad, right? Like I got my start really traveling the country, going to concerts, really trying to find my place in the world. And so it was a really rewarding opportunity that I took advantage of, that I had this chance to every summer and sometimes in the fall, just pick up and go and travel around and check out music all over the country. And that really gave me that spirit, that free spirit, right? And then eventually I found my way to Colorado, and I had been working in bars and restaurants really to make things happen for the college and up, just to make a buck. I started bar backing and then bartending and working the door security, all that stuff. And that was my home when I was away from home, was just working in the industry. And then one day I decided to start working in a kitchen. And that's where I found like a true passion of mine. And for I'd say most of my 20s, I found myself all over the country working restaurants, being a chef, whether it was a line chef, a sous chef, whatever. The highest I ever got was an executive sous chef in New York City. And that really...
don't gloss over this. This is a massive achievement. Like the highest I ever got. It wasn't a big deal, but an executive sous chef in New York. Damn. This is something that this is a career aspiration for some people. And this was like a footnote. Like you just put that in parentheses right now. You're like, that too. Sure, that. Yeah. Some people that's all they want in life. And you've lived that life for them already, man. Sorry, just want to unpack that a little bit.
No.
Yeah, it's cool.
No, it's cool. It was definitely cool. Like I really loved it. I mean, that was a big passion of mine. But then when I reconnected with she's now my wife, when I reconnected with Whitney, we had gone to high school together, so we had known each other forever. And we started dating, and I had moved everything. I had sold everything in Colorado and moved out to New York City. And we were, living there, and I was, doing the chef thing. And then I got the sous chef job. And then she was working she was a alley, like customer service for her father's company, which ultimately I'll get to that in a second. And so the hours of me being a chef and her hours were just completely backwards. Like I'd basically be getting home as she was getting up to go to work. And we just, after a very short period of time, realized this isn't going to work. And I really was committed to making this relationship work. And so I ultimately took a job with the family company, and we did group and event ground transportation, charter bus logistics for pro collegiate teams, business continuity, stuff like that. And so she was my fiance for a long time, a couple of years throughout that. And then we ended up getting married, and we were married in like this power couple in the NCAA for a while, where she was the director of customer service. I was the director of operations. And so we were like the 1-2 punch for what we did. There was nobody that could really move people at scale like we did. And so we became like just these crazy experts in our industry. And I'll tell you what, man, that got me so burnt out of doing that, because we would go through these hotspot periods where about 4 times a year, where, specifically in the NCAA championship, so you got your fall, winter, and spring sports. And so when the activity ramped up during there, it caused burnout pretty quick. And we did it for about 10 years. And yeah.
Wow. Okay. You managed to get through it. You mentioned in the crunch times, I'm just doing the math, about 40 times in your life, you went through that crunch time based on what was happening in the league, just getting bodies moved then. Okay. Surreal. Okay. So a lot of people, I'm sure, would tap out before then. They got that.
And one of the highlights I would say is back in 2015, when the NBA All-Star Game was in New York City. Something that we were able to do, and this is, if you're a bus nerd, you're going to love this, but I double stacked buses from 33rd Avenue up to 42nd Avenue on New York City, right outside of Madison Square Garden. I wish that like a drone was like a thing at that point, because I would love to see an aerial of these buses lined up for almost 10 blocks in New York City, just basically shutting it down, because we had an egress to do. And egress is when all the people came out of the stadium. So we completely cleared Madison Square Garden in 45 minutes, which, everyone's just like, that's never happened before. So I want to tell you, like, we played at the highest level, like the stress levels. And when you play at that level, man, you perform. And I always feel like there's a lot of us in this industry, and to take a side note, when you got your back up against the wall, when things are going to be the hardest, is probably when we perform the best. And there's just like one of those special things inside of a person where you can dig down and do that. And so we did that for a very long time, and that was great. And throughout this, like, I had a buddy who was trying to help me get into the stock game. I was a very low level stock trader. I would always buy the shittiest picks you could, and just really no different than the crypto game. You pick something and it dumps, and you're like, there goes my money. And then we found out about crypto. And flash forward to 5 years and 1 month later, this is where I'm at now. But in October, we're in October now. So September, 5 years ago, what is that? 2017, 2018? Yeah,
it sounds right. 2018.
So that was the first crypto conference that I'd gone to. So I was working as a YouTuber for a crypto exchange. That's now, they did not make the bear market of 2018. But being able to go to a conference that's where I met Ben. Some people know him as BitBoy. I know him as Ben Armstrong. And that's where that we met. And 2 weeks later, we did our first podcast. And yeah, 5 years ago in 1 month, it was the first crypto podcast I'd ever put out. And I'm not looking back. You know what I'm saying? None of us are. We love this too much.
Yeah, no, amazing. And I think I just remember that was the Beards and Bitcoin podcast. And you guys had a decent run, if I'm not mistaken. You did a full year nonstop with Beards and Bitcoin. Is that right? Okay. Yeah.
Yes,
so that's a lot of dedication, a full year on the podcast. And I think with podcasts, as formats go, it can be very difficult for some groups to get their podcast running the way they want it to, but then they tell themselves the time commitment isn't too great, so I can just keep going, right? And do it for the love and not get sponsors for an extra long time and go another quarter without enough sponsors. Like, very treacherous actually in podcast land. So it's a labor
of love, right? It's something you do because you have the passion for it. You don't you do it because you love it, and maybe the money comes. Maybe it takes a few years for the money to come, but yeah, again, it's a passion thing, and that's why we do this stuff.
Yeah, amazing. So on that note, let's talk a little bit about the current passion. Well, it's not a passion project at this point, but Web3 Breakfast, which a year ago somebody might have called a passion project, and I'm on web3breakfast.com right now. I guess we'll jump into this in a minute. I just want to play this as a backdrop. But I wanted to ask you, that was, you mentioned, and thank you for laying out the full story there of who Justin Castardo was before JChains, right? Before the alias, before this whole move towards crypto. But since then, what was the kind of the point of no return? You mentioned that discovering an asset class, but dig deep here and try to remember that moment that for you, if it was a moment, or the realization that you came to, where it was almost like crisis, where you realized, okay, this or that, this is my life with crypto forever attached. And that over there is like not a thing. I can't do that. There's no possible way. It's got to be this. What was that like for you?
Wow. It was honestly, it was a no-brainer, right? So when I went to college, I went to school for broadcast communications, and then I was in acting and all that kind of stuff at my college. And so when the opportunity came for me to sit in front of a microphone and talk and communicate with people, whether they were key opinion leaders in our space or just colleagues, just regular community members like myself, I found very quickly that this was something that I wanted to do, and I had to find a way to make it happen for me, whether I had to kick, scream, claw, whatever it was. This is what I needed to do. And I'll tell you what, we've all, especially when you're in an emerging market, emerging technologies, asset classes that go up and down like a roller coaster, it can be very scary. And you have those moments where you're like, shit, I don't know if this is going to work. Right. I'm telling you, man, like 5 years in, even 2-3 months ago, I looked at my wife and I said, I don't know, babe. I feel like this might be the end of the road for us. Like for me, like I might have to go just get a regular job because the sponsorship dollars have dried up. All the crypto that I've had, we burned through our runway, like a lot of people have over the last several months. Because listen, groceries are expensive, everything's rising, and so if you weren't prepared with an abundance, you just got to start. That's why we have these things at the end of the day, these assets like that. Those are your safety nets, and so you just keep going no matter what. And I tell you what, man, like. You put in the time, you put in the effort, you show up, and you just keep doing it because you love it. And eventually it's going to pay off. And if it doesn't, you die trying, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, as far as that goes, here's the thing. People talk about dying trying and all that. And that's the thing. You die trying, but you can also rebrand and you can pivot. And in this industry, thank goodness, there's so many avenues and so many approaches and so many facets and so many sides of the industry that need the skill set that any person, any professional person from any background could bring in. And then and I'm going to pump up your tires a little bit here. So I know so prepare yourself. But when a guy like you that has all that varied background, but especially any amount of media training, right, where you can get in front of a microphone and you know what to do with it, this is an industry that desperately needs what you offer. But you keep rediscovering that, right, in different ways. And so I'm glad that conversation from a few months ago didn't go terminal. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. Because I was feeling it. I was feeling the heat.
Yeah, it gets that way. And these are tricky markets, right? Thankfully, it seems like, sponsorship dollars are coming back in for certain things. Capital is coming back in certain ways. I'm excited about what's next for you. But on that note, thanks for telling me about the sort of the jumping off point, if you will, the event horizon sucking you into crypto. Let's talk about some big wins and milestones that you've had along the way. Now, most recently, you mentioned not having to go somewhere else to make things happen for your life. But before that, what would you say are some of the most personally meaningful achievements? Because from the outside, man, I see you everywhere. And whenever possible, when working in event coordination, I think a lot of us, right? We try to support each other. I'm like, now Jay Chains is a great. You need to have him on this stage or whatever. He's like the known MC guy, right? For the crypto scene. So at live events, put him on the short list. Bare minimum, put him on the short list, remember him and get him out on stages. But for you, what do you personally find as some of the most gratifying achievements along the path?
That's a really good question. Definitely anytime that someone reaches out and said, hey, we'd like to have you at our event, those are personal wins that it doesn't matter. You can't take that away. Nobody could take that away. Regardless if even if you show up to that event and you totally bomb or you say something stupid, you've done the work ahead of time for someone to ask you to be a part of their event. And those are always things I definitely put those dear to my heart. That means a lot to me. A lot of my friends in this space, people like you, Seth, like there are people that you connect with, and those are also the small wins in life, because now we talk about this on my show that everybody thinks the most important thing in the world is money, but the four currencies of the world, you've got time, you've got knowledge, relationships, and money. And so the relationships to me are more valuable than the money, because that's just how it goes. And so I see things a little bit differently. Just recently, I was just out in UCLA. I had been asked to come out there and speak on a panel at UCLA. And this wasn't a Web3 conference. This was the Global Business Sports Forum at UCLA. And the fact that I was asked to come out there, and the director, this gentleman, Jay, was so gracious and talked to me afterwards. And he said that they loved what we did, and they loved the panel that we were up on there. Was up there with Crypto Stash and Arda with Final Frontier, and just talking about the future of emerging tech and Web3 gaming and how that works. But what was really cool for me, Seth, was that this was a full circle moment, right? Because I told you I was in the charter bus logistics and really moving athletic teams business for 10 years. And so I have these really crazy inner workings of how athletic departments move and operate, and I know their pain points. And so now, after spending the last 10 years in the blockchain space and getting an opportunity to go back there and seeing one or two people from my former life and saying, this is what I do and all that stuff. And it just blows them away. They're like, wow, that's amazing. And like just reintegrating now with my LinkedIn account with those same people and getting messages from people that I've known for years that I haven't spoke to now for about 5 or 6 years, because making that separation and going full time into this, it's just a full circle moment. And those to me are the wins, man. When someone from a previous part of your life comes back and says, hey man, what you're doing is really cool. I'm really excited to see this. That's the stuff that you're on the right track when people say something to you.
Amazing. Okay, so it sounds like you've had these moments, these glimpses of validation, these glimpses of the light at the end of the tunnel, but you're still digging, right? You're still trying to get punch through to the other side of whatever the mountain or what. Like, terrible example. Light at the end of the tunnel.
No, I get it. Perfect.
The thing, I hate that example, and here's why. Because when somebody tells me there's a light at the end of the tunnel, I think, how do you know it's not an oncoming train? God damn it. That could be really dangerous. But jokes aside, like that's amazing that those are the validation points for you, because I feel very much the same way. And certainly that's like last year, as you were starting down this path of Web3 breakfast, like I felt so compelled to reach out to you and chat about that and get a sense for how things were going. Because selfishly, I felt like the industry couldn't lose you, man. Like we couldn't lose you. So when I heard that there was a big shift happening there, I was like, okay, we can't lose this guy. He's a good one. So we can't let him go, whatever, do a stopgap thing somewhere else. We need him here now. Anyway, yeah, that's shaped up very differently over the year because a lot has happened. Like my life did this too. I think I was calling you from a hotel room in Las Vegas where I was literally experiencing Bali belly. Like I couldn't eat solid foods for a week,
right?
Because of all kinds of craziness. But yeah, it's funny how things just like how they shift like that. But those relationships, that's amazing to hear that you mentioned those 4 quadrants of wealth, and that it sounds like you very much weight the relationship side of those quadrants. So let's talk about, on that note, the building and the relationships and the doors being opened. Some of these people that you mentioned also, and then being a part of one of the largest crypto channels on YouTube, and then walking away from it. I know there's a lot that we can't touch right now.
I think everything's been talked about now.
Great. Okay. Oh, okay.
And I know how to navigate. If there's anything that I can't talk about, and if you ask me, I can avoid it. But at this point, every side seems to be very public about what's going on.
Got it. Okay. But a year ago, this was very different, right? So there's since been, and for anybody who's not aware, there's been this huge controversy between the Hit Network, which I guess on paper, owns and operates the BitBoy crypto channel, which has now been rebranded to Discover Crypto. I hate even bringing that up. Before any of that happened, J Chains walked away from it all for undisclosed reasons. Can you disclose your reasons now for why you struck out on your own when it was really fucking hard to do?
Yeah, I was walking away from a 50,000, and because I had my own channel, and I had to walk away from a 50,000 subscriber channel, just cold turkey. It was, at the end of the day, guys will be guys, and I was Ben Armstrong. Let me try that again.
Freudian slip, Ben Armstrong.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I gotta warn you, man. I'm memifying that. It's being snippeted out of this and taken out of context. I'm using it forever. It's mine now.
Perfect. So as Ben Armstrong and I, we, like I said, we go way back. We worked together for a long time, and we had a situation where tempers got the best of us, and we had a blow up. And at the end of the day, man, we're all reasonable people, and we can come together. And in times of need, or in times where big changes need to happen, that you dig deep and you find the opportunities where we can all just be human beings and put things aside for the betterment of an ecosystem for your fellow man and friend or whatever. And so we put our differences aside, and there are some things that I think I would have taken back. I know that Ben and I have talked that at this point we probably would have done things differently, but they are what they are. And so we had gotten into a physical altercation, and I ended up leaving the company for a different reason, related, but for a different reason. I felt like a transaction, and that was that was an organizational call. That was not a particular person. That was just an organizational thing. And so for me, I was like, listen, I value myself a little bit more highly than being a transaction with people who I thought were my friends. And so we moved on. And actually today, Ben and I just today had another conversation about this. It's one of those things where we're as two friends, as two men having conversations, putting the past behind us and healing. I think that we've done that. And that's the most important thing, is that it doesn't matter what you get into, or if you get into a spat, if you get into a feud with somebody, at the end of the day, things can be remedied. And again, if it's for someone else's sake, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And that was the end of the big point. Is like, listen, there's an opportunity for me to reconnect with somebody, and let's get back to where we were. Like the whole thing, starting from the bottom. Like I told you, like a few months ago, I was getting ready to get out of the ecosystem. Ben, he had his whole company taken from him, everything. And so that was one of those things where a lot of shit happened to us, man. Let's start from the bottom and let's build it back up, and let's do it like we used to do it. And we've got some really good support from both our communities, and I'll even take the support from the haters, man.
Yeah, no, hey, they're doing the Lord's work, man. Spreading the word.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, awesome. And it sounds like what you're saying between the lines, J Chains, is that love means never having to say you're sorry. Awesome. Thank you for. Yeah, brotherly love. There, Philos.
Brotherly love. Yeah,
we'll get to the root of it, Philos.
And at this point, we've both apologized to each other, and it was a year ago. We both moved on, and I hope other people. And it's just interesting. I just hope other people in this ecosystem can find the ways to move on from maybe issues that they're having with other people in the past as well. Yeah. Listen, at the end of the day, our Web3 ecosystem is so small that it doesn't make sense to not be able to get along with people. Because again, there's like 60,000 people like really active in this whole space right now.
Right. Yeah. Don't believe the whole like number of total unique wallets. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. A very small pond, very small ecosystem right now. And it can feel contentious if you're not willing to just let certain stuff go. I'm proud of you, man. I'm proud of the both of you, and proud of the example you're setting for a lot of us, because there are petty feuds in the industry. And there are things that there's still some unresolved beef too, right? Between a lot of different groups. And hopefully more people can take inspiration from what they're seeing from you and Ben and say, all right, they managed to bury the hatchet. We can over here, damn it. Like we can just move forward. So
darn right, man.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about, in terms of additional milestones. Let's go outside of crypto. You and your sweetheart, you got a baby girl who's gorgeous. I've met her in person just once. It was in Austin, but you guys, you do good work. I don't know if anyone's told you that. The two of you do very good work together. But other milestones in life, stuff that you're excited about that helps inform this guy who is so personable behind the mic. Like, what are some things that have made you feel very proud, that inform this whole journey moving into crypto, not just within crypto itself, but what are some things that for you think back on where you're like, oh yeah, I remember doing this thing when I was running logistics or operations for logistics and in Transpo, and some other things. Like, I'm still angling for you to talk to us about Buckarooing. by the way, riding horses and
we can get into that. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. First and foremost, what you just said, my daughter, she just turned 2. That to me is that was the biggest game changer of my entire life. My entire world, as a man, as a businessman, as whatever, completely changed. And it changed the instant she was born, right? And it's one of those moments I will absolutely never forget. As the dad, you get the option to cut the cord, right? And and my wife, we had our daughter through a C-section, right? So they bring her out, bring her over, and they're like, "All right, Dad, you can cut the thing." And I did. And I'm standing there and I have my finger just like out like this. And she like reaches her hand up. I'm not shitting you, Seth. And she like grabs my finger, like she was alive for like less than 30 seconds and does this. That she had me at that moment forever. That is a moment. The whole situation of the birth of my daughter was so surreal, and it'd be something I will never forget. But that moment, just being alive, and she grabbed my finger, and it was just like, I will do anything in the world for you, sweetie. So that's to me when we talk about wins or how things like make us move and operate. That's where I'm at this point. But I tell you what, man, back in my early 20s. You want to hear about this one? If you've ever seen they're like those old real world shows, like the original social media, right? The original reality television. If you could think about that. So I was living in Fort Collins, Colorado, and this was back in the chefing days, and I was getting ready to move, I think from Colorado to either California or back to Florida, because I had this little triangle where I was going between Chicago, Colorado, and Florida for a while. My grandparents were down in Florida, and so it was just like this thing. I was just traveling around and being a chef and a nomad. It was really easy. And so I was getting ready to go, and I found this job opportunity, and it was a job posting for a chuck wagon cook. I'm like, this could be interesting. So I go and I'm like, and it was just like one of those, like, we need someone now things. And so I had a friend drive me from Fort Collins out to Estes Park. And I went to this place called Sombrero Ranch. And it was like this horse stable where they had 150 horses, and they did trail rides through the Rockies. And they were looking for the chuck wagon cook. And I'll tell you what, this is like one of those moments, again, that I'll never be able to forget. And it was one of the, I was just mentally clear because of what my thing was, right? And so obviously being the chuck wagon cook, I'd drive out to the station where there was an outdoor pavilion, and I'd cook sometimes 30 to 70 steaks, potatoes, all that stuff. And so as they come in on their little trail ride, and everybody would feed them, and then they'd take off. And then, so I was working there for a little while, and I had never ridden a horse in my entire life. And in fact, I think I was probably very apprehensive to do it. But here's where like the little real world thing comes in. The demographic of the employees was about 15 females that were my age or younger, and 2 other guys.
All right.
And I
may or may not have affected your decision to take the job. It sounds like.
Nah, not at all. And so there was the bunks, there was the guys, we had a guy's little bunk room, and then all the girl bunks room. And it was just such an amazing experience. We used to do our little safety meetings where we'd run up there and everybody would take a shot of whiskey, and then we'd get back to work and do all sorts of stuff. Because like the chuck wagon cook thing was really cool. Having these ladies teach me how to ride horses, save a horse, ride a cowboy kind of stuff. It was a fantastic experience. But I will tell you, and all jokes aside, the coolest part of that entire experience was I would put in a big ass chew, right? Copenhagen long cut. That's what you had to chew as a cowboy. And I would get into a skid steer, and I would get into the pen, and I would start scooping horse shit, and I would drop it into a dump truck. And then I would take that dump truck about 3 miles down some dusty, dirty, bumpy road, drop it off, and go back. And I would do that every 2 or 3 days. And to me, that is one of those things, like, and I had horse manure all over my face, all over my clothes, but it didn't matter. You know why? Because
it's everywhere.
You can't escape it. But you have this opportunity where, again, I was like, you have nothing but yourself to rely on. You have nothing but yourself to really to think and communicate and talk about what you're doing. And so that was a defining moment of my life, when I would spend an entire day just scooping horse shit and just thinking about what the next moves were and where I was going to go. And I think when you actually start to analyze that stuff, like those were some of those defining moments where you say, I need something a little bit better for myself. I need to be making more money. I need to be doing this. I need this. I need a little bit more reward for my outcomes and stuff. And so definitely, I love it. It was obviously a dirty job, but it was one of those defining moments in my life for sure.
Sure. Yeah. I think I get that, man. Like you're saying, it's an existential thing, right? When you're scooping and or wearing shit, You got to think about that. You can't escape it. So you got to think about it for sure. Unless whatever, you got a really active imagination and you're imagining totally something else and completely. Yeah. I'm sure there's some people
I have to find it. It has been, man, it's probably at least been 5 years since I've seen this picture, but there is a picture of me. Because I pick up things very fast. Within, and one of the other guy there, his name was Jake Ely. Jake Ely was a bronc rider, so he could ride a bronco, and so he tried to teach me how to ride. That I went off hard on the first time. I said, "No, that's not me." But he would teach me some things about really how to ride, how to be a cowboy. And so within a few weeks, man, I was roping and riding, and I could full canter on a horse, lasso and throw it and hook like a hoof or something, and. That wow. You learn a lot about yourself when you got to man up and be a cowboy.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So the reason I had to ask, I've got 2 young cousins who I think they're out of the business now, but years ago, I think it was National Geographic ran a special on them because there were some of they over dramatized it, right? The last vaqueros, the last buckaroos, right? In North America. And I was like, no, man, there's plenty of agriculture. There's plenty of spots where you can still rope and ride, right? It's just part of life. But I guess they were actually like free grazing a big herd of cattle. And so they had this special done on them in National Geographic. And I'm always like,
that's cool.
I've strayed very far from the family, from that side of the family business there. And but it's like you're saying, there is something about, and people pay for this too. They call it hippotherapy to go ride horses, right? Like they literally go out of their way, like city slickers go out of their way, bring their kids and stuff, especially anyone with trauma, or if you have special needs kids, you pay to put kids on a horse. Yeah. It's therapy, man. Yeah, you mentioned that. Do you ever miss it? You ever miss like being out there with the livestock or riding a horse?
Yeah, it's different because we have a daughter, but there was actually the whole time that we live in Austin. So we lived there for about 10 years, and then we moved here to Georgia, I think 2 years ago, something like that. Every November, and it was usually in the week of Thanksgiving, every November, my wife and I would go for a trail ride. That was like our chance to get out there and ride again. Yeah, I absolutely miss it, man. Like I did it once, like you said, city slickers, where you did a cattle drive. I did it once for just a couple of days. I didn't do the full thing because I think it was like a 10-day cattle drive. But I would love to do something like that. Maybe when my daughter gets a little bit older, depending on how my body's working at that point. But when she's old enough to handle it, if riding horses is her thing or not, I'm not really sure where we're going to be. But
I haven't met a girl yet who didn't like the idea of riding horse. Just to say, I haven't met a girl yet in life that would ever say, "Oh, I that's too scary." Girls love horses.
Right. They do.
Yeah.
And horses know that. Horses have there's like this telepathic connection that horses have with you. And so they understand if you're nervous, and people will say, "Oh, you can't be afraid because your horse will throw you off." No, your horse is going to throw you off if you do something stupid. If your horse knows that you're nervous, like they're going to.
I'm sorry, there are mean horses. You can have a mean horse because somebody else mistreated them. But yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely had a few of those. And I've got one point ripped the whole back of my arm open because some horse, he took off. He got spooked. I think he saw it was a bear, I think, in Colorado, and just took me through some trees, ripped my arm open. I was pulling so hard on the reins popped off, so I actually had to hold the horse by its mane, full canter all the way back to the stable. I was like, I thought I was gonna die.
Jeez. Okay, and despite that, hey, some people go through those experiences too, and they're like, "Yep, I'm done. Yeah, I had my horse riding adventure. Those were fun days. They're over." Like, but no, this didn't break your will to ride a horse.
No, I'm an adrenaline junkie. I think it's going to take a lot more to get me off the horse.
And with that analogy, maybe we start to wind this down. Let me ask, Jay, what are some really big things that you have coming up? It could be a date that's coming up, upcoming milestones, new things you're launching, anything. This is the shill yourself here section, and including the sites or the locations where you want people to go and what you want them to do when they get there. Please recruit anybody from the Mind Your Biz community. What's important to you and upcoming?
I appreciate that, man. Obviously, we got the Web3 Breakfast Show. So starting, you're probably going to put this out next week. Is that right?
I'm probably going to fast track yours. Yes. So it'll be close soon.
Okay. All right. So starting next Monday, we've been doing 10 a.m. To 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, but I'm actually going to shift that to 8 a.m. And the first hour is basically going to be me doing basically my research, setting up news articles, going through stuff. And what do we need to talk about? Just keeping yourself informed, because that's the number one thing all of us have to do. My show, Web3 Breakfast, that is my big focus. And then obviously we've reconnected with Ben. And so this New World Finance Alliance that we've put together, is the big focus of mine. So now I've got to step my content game back up. It's time to get back into the pre-record videos. It's time to get back into a full content schedule. And then plus we've got Crypto Crossfire on his channel, which I get to host Monday through Thursday. And then our Friday will be a fun little extravaganza of guest hosts and panelists and stuff. To me, it's stepping up the content game, getting back on the horse, if you will. Like a year ago, I fell off the horse and it took me a year, not really to get the courage to get back on it, but to build my community around me so that I had the strength and the courage to get back onto the big horse and to the big stage where we are right now. And man, it's the content schedule coming up for my personal stuff, helping where I can, Ben and AJ on that channel and what they've got going on, the new world finance stuff, and then Ben's channel specifically, helping where I can there, especially with the Crypto Crossfire. The content coming up is really my big push. You can find, obviously, my Twitter account at CryptoJChains. I think probably the jchains.me, that's my website. That'll not get you pretty much to anything, whether it's Web3 Breakfast, my particular YouTube channel, and I'll have to put in the new offerings in there as well for the new world finance stuff. But tell you what, man, I am so excited to use this metaphor again, man. I'm so excited to be back on the horse. And we're not trotting. We're going to a full canter. So
awesome. Amazing. So sites are there on the screen. Mind Your Biz community. We also have them listed in the description, right? There are links right there. All you have to do is click them. I think jchains.me will bring them to a pleasant surprise, right? Then they can figure out everything else from there. So yeah, guys, it's free. It's free to click on that. It's free to subscribe to JChains on Twitter, on YouTube. It's free to go watch him right over on the Crypto Crossfire show that he's hosting every single day. All he's doing is giving you free stuff. All he's doing is giving you free education. All he's doing is giving you a free time to be you, but get upskilled into crypto. So I don't see any downside to that. Obviously, click all the links. Go follow JChains everywhere. But that's enough for me, man. Anything else? Any other places that you're active? Where else do you want people to go, and what do you want them to do when they get there?
I want you to listen, if like the Web3 Breakfast show, that's the one that's the most important to me right now. Why? Because that's my platform. That's my opportunity to showcase our community that's being built around us. Like that, it's not about me. It's not the JChain show. I never want that to be the JChain show. Like I said earlier in the show, in this show, is that it's a community show. It's by the community for the community. And so I encourage everybody to attend that. That's, again, Monday through Friday. It's going to be starting. The show itself starts at 9 a.m. Eastern. And we got the one rule, man. It's don't be a douchebag. No racist, sexist, or homophobes. Other than that, everybody is welcome to come up on stage. And that's the way that I want it to be. I would never want it to feel like people don't have the opportunity to speak. I typically about once a week, we get someone who has the courage to come up and say, I've never spoken in a space before. Thank you for providing a platform for me to be able to feel comfortable enough and vulnerable enough to do that. And so if that's my message that everybody hears is come check out Breakfast, man. Bring a friend to the breakfast table. And I promise you'll learn something and we'll have a fun time doing it.
Awesome. With that, Mind Your Biz community, please go do follow and do jump into the Web3 Breakfast. Make sure you bring a friend as well. And yeah, till next time, guys, remember to stay private and mind your biz.